Hello, my name is Bob Leahy and I'm with PositiveLight.com, and we're here at the OHGN Research Conference in Toronto today, and I have with me Jane Simoni. Now, Jane is from the University of Washington, is that right? In your,
Yes.
Tell me what your role is there.
I'm a professor there in the Department of Psychology in Seattle.
And you've come to Toronto to talk about the role of peers in HIV work. And you've just presented on that, and I'd love to answer. I'm a person living with HIV myself, so I took a particular interest in what you're saying. First of all, just so we know what we're talking about, tell me what is a peer? What does the word mean?
Okay, well, we talk about several characteristics of a peer. First is that they come from the same demographic group as the person that they're working with. Often if they have HIV, they have HIV, or they're a substance user, often from the same racialized group or age or demographic. Second, their experience or their expertise is based in that, what they have, their peerness that we call.
Yeah, that's an interesting word. Peerness. If you're a peer, you have peerness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Does every peer have peerness?
Yes, just by being
good.
a peer. Just by being a peer. And then also that they don't have any particular professional degree unrelated to that it might be something unrelated, but not related to their work. They're not usually an MSW or a psychologist, but their expertise really comes from what they're sharing with the individual.
That's what they bring to the project, that,
Yes.
that a professional who is not a person living with HIV doesn't have, is that right?
Exactly.
So that's what they bring to the
and finally,
table.
what they share is based on a protocol, a set protocol or a set of skills that they're doing. They're not just a friend of someone in the community, otherwise you're just a friend and not a peer. So
Now, do they need training to be a peer?
it helps. It certainly helps to have good basic training in how to provide social support, how to avoid burnout, how to have clear boundaries between being a peer and being a friend. And then even more important than the initial training is ongoing supervision.
Right. Now, okay, so tell me, are peers typically paid in our community? I mean, it may be a rude question almost, but typically peers are paid and they should be paid, right?
Definitely should be paid, and they deserve to be paid. It doesn't mean they always are.
Competitive rates, but it's important as a principle that they are helping on the research or helping in intervention, and I think many people living with HIV would make a strong case. Yeah, this is not volunteer work, correct?
And it shows respect for what they're doing, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What does the literature say about? Is this a very researched area? Have we learned much about this? How peers interact?
Peers have been around for millennia, but the research is actually kind of recent that we're doing, and it's still at a very incipient stage in terms of the sophistication of the methods and the things that we're looking at. So there's been a lot of research. Not a lot of it has been very rigorous in terms of what's been done.
And perhaps I'll ask you in a minute what that research has told us. But before we do that, give me an example. We've talked in the abstract, but give me an example of a peer intervention where peers have been actively working with other professionals and presumably working with other people living with HIV. Give me an example of a good one.
I can tell you about a project we did in Seattle, Washington. It was called Project PAL, Promoting Adherence for Life. So the focus was on medication taking and adherence. And we trained peers over just a 2-day session to then work with individuals. We matched them up to at least 3 people each.
To get people to take pills more frequently as they should. Would these be people who were slipping in adherence and so the peers stepped in to try and help them? Precisely. And how did that work?
It's great. We had some outcomes at the end of 3 months. Peers were able to take their medications a little bit better. But what we found is when we took away or ended the intervention, people tended to relapse back into not as such good adherence.
So maybe, is that common? Like, does it work just for the, or maybe that's the function of the adherence nature, but do we see lasting effects with peer interventions?
At times, but I think it is better to have a more sustained intervention.
Right.
I mean, the ideal situation would be you'd have a peer continuously available. So you'd have maybe an intensive period of intervention, but then you'd have a community of peers or a resource of peers that they could go back to when they need extra support.
So they tend to be time-limited kind of interventions, but we could do with
by
longer.
the nature of our research.
Right. So in that particular instance, Jane, how did it work out? Were peers helping?
Yes, they were for that initial period especially, but over time it was a little bit harder to show the effects. They tended to relapse or decrease back into non-adherence.
Right.
We did have some long-term effects that were surprising that we didn't anticipate, that it did have some effect on their biological outcomes at the end.
In what way?
Their viral load was decreased and their CD4 count seemed to increase, showing a more enhanced immune system.
So that's a function of the adherence then.
I think so. The adherence and maybe being more timely with the adherence. So that was helpful.
So in let's use that as an example. What does the peer themselves get out of it? Because clearly the benefit is intended for the person who's receiving receiving the support. But there must be, and I think we hear stories. In fact, we heard this morning peers standing up and saying, "This has been a life-changing experience. It's meant so much to me." Talk a little bit about that.
Great question, Bob. Actually, the interventions typically have a greater impact on the people providing the help than it does on the people receiving the help. It's empowering. It makes sense, right? It's empowering. We're going out. We feel good about the work that we're doing. We're learning from our training, and we're learning. They say you never really learn something till you actually teach it. So you go out, you feel that you're a role model for the community, you're a role model for other people, and so you hold yourself to a higher standard. And we found in the work that we did, we interviewed some folks in the Bronx who had been peers for a while, and they told us they felt more social acceptance, they felt a kind of resilience and strength, and they felt greater involvement in their community through this.
And they had a little bit of money in their pocket, which for many people living with HIV who rely on low incomes, that's useful too. But which of those factors is the money or the rewards? Which do you hear is the most important?
I think everyone likes the money, but no one cited that as the main reason for doing it or for staying involved.
All right. Yeah. Jane, I'm guessing it is not always easy work, and some peers would face challenges and wonder if they're really making a difference. Or tell me the sort of, what are the challenges and the problems that people encounter. Your research has been on that too, right?
Yes, there certainly are challenges. Of course, there's burnout, like in any field, but particularly for peers who don't have a lot of training in doing this. They don't have a professional degree where a lot of these issues are discussed. So there's burnout, there's frustration around some peers or other clients that they work with are particularly difficult or hard to reach in terms of they're not ready for the support, they're resistant to the support, and the peers often take it on themselves that they failed if the person that they're working with doesn't do well. So that can be hard for them. And finally, when peers when the clients they're working with go through their own issues, when they get sick, when they pass away at times, which happens, when they have relapse in terms of their substance use, the peers often take that very hard.
Right. So if it's not going so well, you feel bad about it yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So there's good sides and the bad sides, but typically the balance of the good outweighs. Is that fair to say?
Particularly with very good supervision. I think peers, we can't be trained in a few days and then sent off to do this work without ongoing support and supervision. And I actually recommend peer supervision. So
and peer training and the whole peer everything.
Into a group, and you need others who are going through the same thing and supporting each other.
Yeah. Okay. So one last question. That's very interesting, Jane. I'm going to ask you, if I was I'm a person living with HIV and I was approached to be a peer, what would you say to me? What would I need to consider?
Okay, I would ask you to think about whether this is the right time in your life to do it. Is it a time where you're feeling maybe having some challenges physically, maybe you're having some transitions at work and your relationship, whether it's a time where you really are available to give to other people. And if it's not, it's fine to think about it just as another time. Not that you're not the right person to do it, but it's not the right time. So that's one thing I'd ask you. And the second, I'd ask you if that's something you enjoy, because it is challenging. People often think about the rewards up front, but realize there'll be some challenges to it too.
I always think that any work, it's very important you enjoy it more than anything, don't you agree?
Yes.
Oh, that's good, Jane. That's given us a really good background. I certainly see that in Ontario, at least, we're using peers all the time. So it's good to hear from you and know that we're actually thinking about how we use them better, and the challenges it presents to them. So it's a very good perspective. Jane Simoni, thank you very much for talking to Positive Light, and thank you for coming to Toronto and addressing the conference.
Yes.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.